This is a beginner class where we will attempt to help you understand DNA tests and the different companies that give them, what they can and cannot do for your family history research. Why should I take a DNA test? There are many reasons to take a DNA test. These are just a few. To answer the question, where do I come from? What part of the world did my ancestors live in? To answer a genealogical question, questions like, who is my great-grandfather? When you cannot find a paper trail, DNA can help you with questions like this. To answer a paternity question, if there has been an adoption or if there have been rumors in the family about great-great-grandmother's father, DNA may be able to help. To leave a legacy for your family, one of your descendants may want to know more about their family history, or you in particular. Leaving a sample of your DNA may help them find the answers they are looking for. Cousin bait. You never know what information or pictures have passed down through other branches of the family. Putting your DNA out there may introduce you to a cousin you didn't know about. To verify your paper genealogy, it is always nice to have your hard work verified, and DNA can help you do just that. The vocabulary of DNA can be confusing. Let's start with some definitions. Don't worry about writing these down. There is a downloadable copy of these available on the library's website. Autosomal DNA, a term used in genetic genealogy to describe DNA inherited from the autosomal chromosome. These are passed down to children from both of their parents. Centimorgans, a unit of measure for DNA. It tells you how much DNA you share with another person. The amount of centimorgans you share can help determine your relationship with another person. Chromosome, an organizational unit of DNA. Humans have 22 pairs of autosomal chromosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is a chemical that transmits genetic information from one generation to the next. Endogamy, the custom of marrying only within a local community, clan, or tribe. This can make a DNA match seem closer than it really is because you share more than one ancestor. Genetic distance, a whole number that indicates the number of mutations and probable generations that differ between two people. Haplotype, a genetic population or group of people who share a common ancestor. Identical by chance, a term that describes DNA segments that are identical because of chance rather than ancestry. This is something that can happen with groups of endogamous people or just an extremely common gene. Identical by descent, a term that describes DNA segments that are identical or nearly identical because they were inherited from a common ancestor. Mitochondrial DNA, a small circular chromosome found in the mitochondria. It is passed from mother to child. While a male child will inherit his mother's mitochondrial DNA, he will not pass it on. SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, or SNP. SNPs are copying errors. You inherit your SNP versions from your parents. The number of SNPs where you match another person can be used to tell how closely you are related. Triangulation is a technique in which 3 or more people who all share the same segment of DNA compare family trees to discover a common ancestor. X chromosome. This is the sex-determining chromosome. Women have 2 X's and men have only 1 X and 1 Y. And last but not least, Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. This Act of Congress was passed in 2008, forbidding employers and health insurance companies from using genetic information to make employment or coverage decisions. But be sure to check the company you use terms of service to make sure you know what they can and cannot do with your information. Understanding family relationships will help you understand your DNA results. For instance, what do they mean by first cousin once removed? What is a half first cousin once removed? What is a double first cousin? Understanding what all of these family relationships mean is important to understanding your DNA results. You may want to pause this lesson after each of the following questions to give yourself more time to answer each one. Let us use this simple family tree. Tressie has 2 sons, Joe and Rick. They each have 1 son, Chris and Thomas. What is the relationship of Chris and Thomas? The answer is they are first cousins. Next question, what is the relationship of Stephen and James? They are second cousins. Their common ancestor, Tressie, is their great-grandmother. This one is a little harder. What is the relationship of Stephen and Thomas? They are first cousins once removed. The once removed refers to the generation difference between each person and their common ancestor. Because Tressie is Stephen's great-grandmother and Thomas's grandmother, they are 1 generation removed from each other. Are you ready for the next one? What if Joe and Rick are half-brothers? Their mother is Tressie, but they each have a different father. Now what is Chris and Thomas's relationship? This would make Chris and Thomas half first cousins. Half first cousins are not listed on the relationship chart on the next slide or in the handout, but they will show up on DNA match lists. Let's try another one. Let's say that Rick and Joe marry sisters. Now what is the relationship of Chris and Thomas? That would make Chris and Thomas double first cousins. All of this is important to understand when looking at your matches on DNA sites. This is the chart that's in the downloads. You can use this chart to find the relationship between you and another person to a common ancestor. Who the common ancestor is to you is on the left, and for the other person across the top. Where do they intersect? That is the answer to how you are related. So let's say your common ancestor is your 3rd great-grandparents. And the person whose relationship to you are trying to figure out, that same person is their 4th great-grandparents. That makes you 3rd cousins once removed. Try this out with people you know in your family, and it will help you make more sense of it. This chart is also available in the downloads. The Shared Centimorgan project has constructed this chart to help people understand their genetic relationships. It can help you understand how you may be related to someone. This is how to read this chart. The top of the box lists the relationship. The first number is an average number of centimorgans for this relationship, and the bottom number is the range of centimorgans. As an example, let's say you share 400 centimorgans with someone. There are a lot of options. You could be a first cousin twice removed, a great aunt or uncle, a first cousin once removed, a second cousin, a half first cousin once removed, a half great niece or nephew, and so on. And remember, there are exceptions to every rule, so these numbers are not set in stone. DNA is unpredictable. The most likely relationship here is a great-great niece or nephew, or a half first cousin, or a first cousin once removed, since the average number is closest to the 400 centimorgans. The chart should help you understand your relationships when you look at a number of centimorgans in an autosomal test. But as you can see, nothing is definite, so don't jump to any conclusions. If the amount of centimorgans isn't what you think it should be, because DNA is random, there can be several different relationships to almost any amount of DNA. Which company should I test with? The answer is, it depends. Do you have a specific question that can only be answered by a specific test? If not, I generally suggest that people start with Ancestry. There are several reasons for that. They have a very large population to compare to. This means their ethnicity estimates use a more accurate algorithm, and there are potentially more matches for you. Also, their tests can be transferred to most other companies, but they do not accept transfers. Transferring to another company is generally free or at a lower cost, and this will give you an even larger pool of matches to work with. The Family Tree DNA offers 3 different tests: the Y-DNA test, Family Finder, and Maternal Ancestry. Family Tree DNA is the only company at the moment offering Y-DNA and maternal ancestry testing. The Family Finder test is an autosomal test and is the same test most companies are using at this time. Y-DNA is inherited through the male line, so chances are good they will share you or your father's surname. A match of this kind of DNA means you share a common ancestor sometime in the last approximately 250 years. Maternal DNA test, or mitochondrial DNA, is inherited mother to child. While males inherit this DNA, they do not pass it on. So a match with this test means that you share a common female ancestor in the last few thousand years. This is because mitochondrial DNA mutates very slowly. Autosomal DNA is the test run by most companies. This type of DNA is inherited from both of your parents. This type of DNA is what gives you your ethnicity. This is the test you take when you order from Ancestry. This is the type of result that is transferable to most DNA companies for free or at a lower cost. Here are my mother-in-law's ethnicity estimates from MyHeritage and Ancestry. She is deceased, and I have the permission of her son to use this as part of my program. As you can see, they are somewhat different. Ancestry has England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland as separate areas, while MyHeritage only has England separated from the group. Neither one of these is wrong, but the Ancestry one is somewhat more accurate. As these companies test more people, their algorithms get more accurate. So your DNA does not change. When a new ethnicity estimate is released by any of these companies, it is generally just more accurate. Some will give you the county in England and Ireland, and some will just say English. The real treasure when it comes to DNA and genealogy is the matches. This is part of the list of matches from Ancestry for my mother-in-law. I have blocked out the names and pictures to protect the individual's privacy. She has more than 1,000 matches of fourth cousin or closer. As you can see across the top, there are multiple ways to filter the list so you can find what you need to research your list. Ancestry lists the most likely relationship, but this is not necessarily the correct relationship. Here's where they show you if you have a common ancestor that is listed on both of your trees and if they have a family tree on Ancestry. I have added notes when I see who the common ancestor or ancestral couple is. I also use the group function. This helps you to sort matches to a specific genealogy question. Some of these tools have been recently updated, and I will go into all of that and the different tools on Ancestry DNA and how to use them in my next presentation. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube or follow us on Facebook. DNA can be intimidating, but it also can be fun and a useful part of your family history journey. If you have any questions or problems, please contact me through email, Facebook, or call the Randolph Room at the Ashboro Library.